Want to learn how to draw pretty anime eyes? Well, I got you covered. By the end of this video, you'll understand basic shapes, how to draw the details like eyelashes in the pupil, and lastly, how to color and shade the eyes. Starting off with the shapes. For the first eye, it has a pretty round silhouette. This is good for when you want to draw cute looking characters. The second eye shape is what I most commonly draw. It's cute and slightly more mature looking than the first. The last one is more serious and pairs well with older looking characters. Getting the shapes right will make drawing the rest of the eyes a whole lot easier. Let's take a look at what makes these eyes appear different. The bottom eyelids are similar with a long downward slope, or is relatively straight, followed by a short upward slope. For the top lashes, it starts as a short upward slope. The main difference is the length and the angle of the top part of the eye. You can also draw them slanted down for hooded-eyed characters. And for the end lashes, they are usually pointing up. I like to draw the lashes thinner at the front and have them slowly get thicker towards the end. Personally, I leave the top eyelid disconnected from the bottom, and I usually add some eyelashes to where it curves right here. For the iris, instead of a perfect circle, a lot of the times the iris in anime are usually drawn as an oval, and make sure not to draw them taking up the whole eyeball. For the serious eyes, the pupils tend to be smaller. Basically, the more realistic the eye is, the older the character will look. And when drawing in the shadows being casted by the upper eyelid and lashes, it wouldn't be completely straight but curved. The rules still apply for the rest of the eyes that I'm drawing, lashes being thinner at the beginning and thicker at the ends, leaving a gap between the upper and lower eyelids, and also adding triangles for eyelashes. The eyelids is just a sideways Y, and the eyebrows are pretty much just aligned with some weight in the front. But for older looking characters, the eyebrows will be placed lower. This is a method that I sometimes use. I draw 3 rectangular boxes that are relatively the same length. The eyes will start around the top of the ear and end around the halfway point, and make sure to leave some space at the ends of her face. I start drawing the basic shape first. The key is to focus on the steepness of the angles and how long that section of the eye will be. So for example, here I made a mental note that 2/3 of the eye go at an upwards angle, and then it goes down from there, completing the almond shape that I'm going for. Remember to keep the lashes thinner at the front and thicker towards the end. For the bottom eyelid, I either have it go slightly downwards or draw it completely straight, and then have the ends curve up. After that, I draw the iris. The bigger the iris is, the bigger the eyes will look, just like how some people wear contacts to make their eyes appear larger. Quick tip, you can use the liquify tool to make quick changes. Here I want to make her eyes a little bigger and also smoothen the sharp corners out. Next I add in some strands for the eyelashes. I like to make this section split into 2 strands. You can always practice drawing the second eye by mirroring the angles, but I'ma save time and just copy and paste, using more liquify to make adjustments. And that is how I sketch out the eyes. Now you have a friendly looking anime girl. I'ma give a quick rundown on the sketching portion. Oh, and this beautiful character is from Yori on Instagram. This is my entry for her Draw This in Your Style challenge. Starting off, I draw the guidelines for where the eye placement should be. Her head is slightly tilted, so the guidelines should follow that. After, sketch out the basic shapes of the eye. That circle is a visual of where the highlights would go. And for the last step, I add in some eyelashes, some on the bottom, and then maybe 2 or 3 strands on the top. Erase the guidelines, add any final details, and you're done. Now the line art is pretty straightforward, but there are a few things to keep in mind of, so I quickly go over that. Pro tip, do the line art for eyes on a separate layer and then merge it together once you're done. It's easier to make line art by not having to deal with accidentally erasing the hair strands. There are 2 ways to go about doing the line art. One option is to color in the eyelashes like our sketch. This way you can have a layer that is clipped to the line art, and then you can draw your highlights on the lashes that way. Or you can do the line art normally and have 2 separate base colors for the lashes and the iris. And lastly, vary the line weight by drawing the darker areas thicker to add depth. Before we start, this is the brush that I'm using for shading, but any opacity brush would work. we're going to have the base color for lashes and the iris on the different layers. Starting off with lashes, pick a fairly dark color for the base. If your character has dark hair, you can use the same color as that, but I generally avoid light colors because I think it's a bit trickier to make them look good. Next, we'll color in the iris. Her eyes are like a light green, so that is what I'll use. Next, I'm gonna color in the scleria, which is the white part of the eye, and the key here is to not use pure white. I usually pick a very unsaturated light orange color, and I'll have this clipped to the base color of the skin. Alright, so since the character's skin is very light, it's a bit difficult to see where I'm coloring at, so we'll have to turn her into a Tokyo Ghoul character. But now you can see the areas that you've missed, and this is a purely stylistic choice, but since we cannot see where her eye ends, I use a soft brush to kind of blur it out. And make sure to un-Tokyo Ghoul your character once you're done. Onto the shading portion, I'll be using an opacity brush. You are going to pick a darker, more saturated color from the base. So on a new layer that is clipped to the base, I will shade in the top half of the iris and add some shading to the sides as well. You can keep it simply like this, or you can make this shape that I do for no reason. Next, I lock transparent pixel and then use an airbrush to darken the shadow, especially near the top. Then on a new clipped layer, choose a very dark and saturated color for the pupil, draw it near the center of the iris. Well, now our character looks a little bit creepy, so using lock transparent pixel, I use the color from the first shadow and apply it on the pupil like this. On a new layer that is also clipped to the base color, we are going to add another shadow layer to show the strands of the eyelashes casting a shadow over the iris. I learned this style from this user on Twitter. It's pretty straightforward, using a very dark color, perhaps the same one as the pupil. You're going to shade 1/3 of the iris, but this time you're going to add the obvious shadows casted from the eyelashes, and the shadows will also curve to the sides of the iris. Next, blur the corners out just a little bit to make sure the eyes are more lively. I'm gonna lighten the area a bit. I'm not sure, but I think it might be called ambient secondary light. But basically, on the same layer, we are going to lighten the area with a desaturated blue. On the same layer, I'm darkening just the outline of the shadow to make it stand out. Next, on a new layer, I'm going to add an outline over the entire iris. Start by picking a dark color to go around the iris. Keep the thickness about the same as what I've shown. Now, on the inside of the shadow, I'm going to use a lighter color. And with that lighter color, I will also create a slight gradient. And lastly, for the final shadow, I'm going to add an almost black color to the top corners. Okay, now this is my favorite part, adding the highlights, which makes the eyes come to life. Using an almost black color, draw a triangle under the eyelashes. You can use whatever shape you'd like, but I always use triangles. Then color in the area with white, leaving a small outline of the dark color. For final touches, I also like to add a triangle at the bottom, using a color that is slightly lighter than the base to give it more shine. Back on the scleria layer with it on lock transparent pixel, I'm going to shade the top half with a light gray using a blue hue. Next, I'll blur the edge with a soft brush using a warm color like orange. This is called subsurface scattering. For the final step, I'm going to add in some shading for the eyelashes. On a new layer, I'm lightening this area with a dark orange to show that this section of the eyelash is thinner. Next, on another layer, I'm going to add lighting to show the individual lashes. It's a bit hard to explain, but basically imagine the eyelashes as 3D, and the light is only able to hit the top half of the eyelash. I also like to darken some areas, especially under the lashes, so they would stand out. Continue rendering until you get something you like. Here is the process broken down. You have your base color, which you then add highlights to, then you're going to darken up the areas under the lashes so they'd stand out, and then you lighten up the lashes some more where the light can reach better. Finally, darken up some areas and give it some outline to make it stand out. And if you are lazy like me and don't want to do that all over again, you can just select all the layers, holding Ctrl and then copy and paste. And with that, here is the final result. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please feel free to comment down what kind of tutorials you would like to see next. And please check out my Instagram as well. I'll have a link to my socials in the description below. Okay, thank you. Bye.